applause here. Cool. Yay. Well, welcome everybody to What's Cooking with Dr. Cook. We have an awesome RD2RD chat tonight with one of my favorite celebrity dietitians in my book. Yes, Andy De Santis. So welcome, Andy, to the show.
Thank you so much for
Very happy
having
to have
me.
you.
And I've just learned how to
Yes.
pronounce your last name, so that's even better.
Uh,
Nice little bonus.
yeah, it's a tricky one for sure. I always tell
It
people,
works.
I'm married into it. I love them, so I'll keep it.
I mean, it works. That's what I'll say. I love
Yeah.
some good wordplay. So,
Yeah. It was especially fun when I was teaching high school to come in and yeah,
all
so
right.
actually you have class with Dr. Cook. So definitely. But I just think you are one of the funniest dietitians ever. Like, you're definitely one of the smartest dietitians. I started following you on Instagram years ago because I just came across you in my feed and your post about nutrition, not only super informative, but they made me laugh. And I was like, this
Good.
guy is funny. So, you know,
I
continue
like it.
to
I like
this
to hear
day,
that. That's
just
good.
like always getting good chuckles out of Andy the RD, on Insta. And then it's just been such a pleasure to bring you on as a contributor with foodguides.com because your information is just always, on point, on time, like timely subjects and just really cool stuff. So I'm glad to talk about liver health with you tonight for
As am I. I'm
sure.
looking forward to it. Yeah, something that,
Definitely.
spent a lot of time diving into. So, it'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, before we dive into liver health, I would love for you to just, tell our wonderful audience a bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess I'm a dietitian from Toronto, Canada. I guess first and foremost, got a master's degree at the University of Toronto a while back, maybe in 2014. So maybe that's what is that, 8 years ago. So the time has flown since then. And I've always, you mentioned, writing, and it's a real pleasure, a real privilege to write for Food Guides and to do all the writing I've been, I've always loved writing. It's always kind of come natural to me, and I've enjoyed always in my life kind of cracking jokes, and I've always loved nutrition. So to be able to do all those three things essentially, for my career, which is what I do now, like you alluded to, and kind of expressing my creativity on Instagram, it's an absolute pleasure. And I mean, nutrition and writing are my favorite things. And in my personal life, my main passion is soccer, watching, playing, talking about it. And yeah, to be honest, I'm a pretty simple man. Those are the most important things that anyone really needs to know about me. I have written 11 books, so that's kind of fun. But they're cookbooks though, so they're not they're not like novels, so it makes it slightly less impressive. But nonetheless, it's still 11 books. So
Oh yeah, no, I actually I have one right here.
ooh,
So
acid
it's,
reflux,
the
nice.
easy 5 ingredient acid reflux cookbook, which is
That was one of my
fantastic.
first.
Oh, it was your first?
No, it was one of my first. It was one of my
Oh,
first
okay.
ones. Yeah. It's one of I think it's one of the better selling ones. I mean, obviously, acid reflux, such a popular. I mean, popular. In quotations, popular topic. Big reason for people getting medicated. So people want to know what's up, and the information's always changing as well. So it's a very fascinating subject matter.
Yeah, what I really love about that cookbook in particular is that you do actually focus a lot on FODMAP as well, which is
Hmm.
something that, I think a lot of people are kind of keying into nowadays, just how, FODMAP is something that could, really help not just with people who suffer from IBS, but also with GERD and acid reflux. I mean, um, it's really cool to see people who are kind of like crossing over into GERD and acid reflux being like, okay, this is also helping
Hmm.
my symptoms as well. So that cookbook in particular lists not only, your common triggers for GERD and acid reflux, but also brings those, low FODMAP and high FODMAP listings in a clear facet. So, people who are honing into that can get an idea of what they're looking for following those diet patterns as
Yeah, I
well.
mean, and the fact of the matter being, there's only so much to even there's only so much research and real meaningful evidence around interventions for acid reflux. So you do have to expand and to see what else can be done, right? And kind of stretch, not stretch it, not in a way taking liberties, but stretch it in a way and see what's out there. So that was definitely part of that. So yeah, I'm glad you have that book, lovely book. I don't think I even have one of those around anymore. I think all my clients stole all of mine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that tends to happen in dietetics for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
When you first, finished your dietetic education, did you know right away you wanted to go into private practice, or did you start in a different avenue?
Yeah, like in my head, back then, and the thing with me is I'm not really good at asking for advice and stuff, right? So I kind of I had all these things in my head that, oh yeah, I'm gonna have an office and stuff, but I didn't really know what it entailed. You know what I mean back then. And I worked a job at first at Diabetes Canada, which used to be the Canadian Diabetes Association, kind of research and education, and that was really fun. But it was getting to the point I was kind of leaving the office and kind of wasn't feeling super fulfilled, and I knew I had to do something different. But there weren't so many compelling options for me, to be honest. And so that's when I kind of decided to try doing my own thing. And yeah, it almost failed in the beginning as well. So it's good that we're all here. It's very good that we're all here. I'm happy to be here. Thanks to Instagram, for opening so many doors for so many people as well, right? I mean that's a massive player in my career. So it's great.
Right, right. Well, I have to ask, is kale really your favorite food?
It's tough, like to say, I mean, kale is kale, right? I mean, I do eat kale almost daily, 98, 99% of the year. So, but kale is not, it's not like a mango. It's not delicious in the same way. It's different. So it's tough. I mean, it's one of the only foods I eat every single day. To say it's my favorite, that's a tough question. I don't know. I'd have to really, write a blog on that or something and really break that down. I don't, I'm not sure. I take these questions very seriously.
Yeah, well, you have to. Yeah,
No,
if we're gonna go there, I'm just gonna go there before we go to liver health
yeah, of
then,
course.
because one thing I always want to know from dietitians is if you were going to, be stranded on a deserted island, what would be
hmm
the three foods that you take?
I actually ask this question to people a lot because it tells you a lot about a person as well. It's for me. I have six, right? It would be hard. I apologize for slipping a little bit. It would be hard for me to choose three. I'm gonna tell you my six. Unfortunately, I cannot pick three, and I pick these foods to combine actual nourishment and what I enjoy. So I'd probably take one of salmon or tofu, and then sweet potatoes, bell pepper, kale, mango, and avocado. Don't ask me to narrow that down. That's like trying to choose between a favorite pet or something. I can't do that. You know,
Okay,
it's
okay.
gotta
So
be it's
you're
gotta
looking
be
for
it's gotta be those six.
longevity versus like, you know, maybe like a vice in there, like a chocolate or caffeine or something like that.
It's tough, right? Because I truly like all those foods. I really, really do. So it doesn't represent any sort of sacrifice for me to have them. Like those are
Okay.
literally a big majority of what I eat. I mean, sure, yeah, I like ice cream cake. I like cold brew coffee. Thankfully, I don't have to go on an island and make these type of decisions. You know what I mean? Let's put it that way. I mean, I do. There's also stuff I like, but I also like going to the bathroom regularly, and in order to do that, I'm gonna have to have appropriate amount of fiber and things like this. So, you know.
100%. I think
Yeah,
that is like such an important point because, you know, I'm not
it's a great
a
question.
100% sure. I'm very, very, almost 100% positive that it's pretty similar in Canada, but at least
hmm
here, in the US of A, we're not meeting our fiber needs at all. So, that's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I made a comment on one of my posts the other day that, just anecdotally, one of the things that clients will say in the short term is, what, Andy, I'm pooping better. When we optimize the dietary pattern, as I like to diplomatically say, you know what I mean? So yes, fiber. It's regular bowel movements are just wonderful things. So yes, it is very important.
Definitely, 100%. Well, I'm a huge fan of what you're doing in terms of bringing education for liver health, to the public. I love what you've been writing about, on food guides about liver health. One thing that I think is kind of interesting is that I think there is a misconception of like how prevalent liver health or liver disease actually is.
Hmm.
Um, it's a lot worse than what people know because there are some stats out there that's only affecting like 1 in 10 people, adults, but it's far worse than that. And we're looking at closer to 1 in 4 now.
Absolutely.
So
Those are the figures that I've seen and the figures definitely that I cite in my book out of the United States. And there's a lot of I don't know if you call it pediatric, adolescent, maybe not pediatric, but certainly adolescents, who are coming in with diagnosis of fatty liver disease, or maybe this is more the medical side, but perhaps elevated enzyme levels in liver, on ultrasound, like fats, some visible fat, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a bigger, to be honest. This is actually a fascinating thing to share. So for myself, I mean, you'll probably notice about me. I actually quite enjoy acquiring knowledge in different areas. So I'm not necessarily, I don't know everything but one thing. I pick a few things and try and learn as much as possible. So when this came across my desk, so to speak, I didn't. I mean, I knew I had made one post on liver health previously. It did really really well, but I never thought much of it. People are really compelled by the liver. I don't. I personally I don't fully get it. I mean, obviously, I do, but it doesn't. The liver itself doesn't necessarily excite me more than another organ, or whatever the case may be. But people are really compelled by liver health, and liver content. And I was shocked actually at how prevalent fatty liver disease is, and I felt even better about writing the book because I'm like, okay, this is a very topical issue. This is a real concern. And so you're absolutely right. It's underestimated.
definitely. I think that some people actually might get like turned off from the term like fatty liver disease, but
Hmm.
it's not. I mean, the term itself is just off-putting, but it's
Call it
it's not
NAFLD,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. But it's not exactly what it literally says. There is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease as well. So
Yes.
there's a lot of terminology in there, but like if somebody were to say like 1 in 4 adults have fatty liver disease, there might be a misconception of what exactly that is. So could you maybe just explain that a little further for those who are just tuning in
No.
and might not know what fatty liver disease exactly is?
Yeah, and I had a client message me both the acronym NAFLD, which was on my story for a post I made previously. So like, great, I'll throw those we throw these terms around, but then you have to keep in mind that they're not widely known. So the most common form of liver disease is what's known as NAFLD, right? Which is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which basically means to put it simply, abnormal fat accumulation on the liver, not caused by alcohol, right? It's pretty much what it is, right? So fat gets deposited on the liver. It's not supposed to be there, right? That's not a normal physiological thing. And when it accumulates beyond a certain point, it starts to interfere with liver function, leads to inflammation, which then leads to damage, and it's a progressive condition. So there's different stages. So 1 in 4 people get NAFLD. Of those, I can't remember the exact numbers. A percentage of 25% will get what's called NASH, which is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. And then from those, a few people will end up with cirrhosis, which is a very, very severe form of liver disease. But the most common form certainly is NAFLD by far. That's the most common liver disease in North America.
Okay.
So if we say
And
NAFLD, that's what we're talking about.
yeah, and that's what's occurring in children and adolescents is
Yes.
they're developing that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, at an early stage. And I can remember back in 2008 when I was working clinicals and then in like an adolescent weight management treatment facility. We were seeing it here locally.
Hmm.
in children and adolescents, presenting clinically. And I don't want to say frequently, but it was pretty regularly. So I can only imagine like
Yeah.
what those statistics look like now.
Yeah, and there's and the diagnostic aspect is not my expertise, of course. The nutrition aspect is, but the thing is, there's different levels, right? You can look at and enzyme levels tell a little bit of a story. There's ultrasound, there's biopsy, so there's different diagnostic criteria and things like that. My sister's also a pediatrician, and she said to me, yeah, I might need this book to give to patients, right? So it's all it's like more prevalent in adults, undoubtedly, right? Because there's going to be a chronic nature to it. But yeah, I mean, it's there. It's happening in kids, and you know, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, right? I mean, intervention for nutrition for adolescents is not so straightforward either.
Yeah. Oh, it is. I mean, like, well, it is not. It is not straightforward because you
Right.
do have to be careful with a whole bunch of aspects there. You have to
Hmm.
meet their growing nutrition needs while also watching, fat, but
Well, even having
really
a
it's
captive
more so,
audience, right? You
yeah.
know, to interfere with their autonomy, right? That's a whole other challenge.
Oh, exactly, exactly. Actually, my dissertation research was looking at like healthy lifestyle interventions with families. So really, who
Right.
has the power control in families? Is it the parents or the adolescents? So
Right.
really kind of looking at whether or not the adolescents could influence the parents to make better, food choices in the home if they delivered like key messages to them, which were actually
Right.
really effective. Um, but there is kind of that constant question of who's actually purchasing the foods. If
Right.
your kid is coming home and saying like I want Takis and soda and that's the only thing I'm going to eat, are you as a parent actually going to continue to purchase those items for them because they say that's the only thing I'm going to eat?
Right.
So yeah,
No, it's very
it's very
fascinating.
interesting.
I saw a quote. I'll just mention this briefly. I remember I was doing a brief little piece on adolescent nutrition. I saw a quote from a paper where it said, behavioral science has rarely been able to find an effective intervention for adolescents, something like that. I'm not sure if that is fully true, but I got the gist of it, the spirit of that quote. So I found that was pretty funny. I'm sure it's not entirely true, but it kind of speaks to the challenges.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in my personal opinion, I think it just needs to be more nutrition in the schools, and that would be very
Sure.
helpful to give them some, skills that they can use, at home themselves, But
Yeah.
that's me
Fair.
in my observations. So, one thing about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease that I think is really important to touch on is the fact that if you are diagnosed with that, it does increase your chance of liver cancer by 17-fold. So I I think that that's really important. I think that, the talking about the dietary interventions that people can take to, not only prevent but also potentially treat, because it is
Mhm.
reversible.
And you
Yeah.
you know what? That's a great point to bring up, and it ties in very. This is a great tie-in because you mentioned coffee, cold brew, and you know me as probably someone who I love my coffee. I talk about coffee a lot, the value of coffee. Now, this is actually fascinating. So coffee intake. With observational evidence, coffee drinkers actually have a lower risk of NAFLD, and they also have a lower risk of progressing if people already have it to more advanced stages. Those who drink coffee like one cup, let's say a regular drinker, so one cup a day. What's also very fascinating is as it relates to liver cancer. So I've done a little bit of work, a little bit of writing for the American Institute of Cancer Research. I really like how they do evidence summaries for various types of cancer. And the only food or beverage they identify as potentially protective against liver cancer, and they're very diligent if they make a claim about these types of things, is coffee. Okay. So coffee drinkers have a low risk of liver cancer. So there's a massive tie in there, right? Now, a lot of on social media, coffee can be polarizing, but the reality is coffee contributes more antioxidants to the average American diet than food does. It's the top contributor
Hmm.
of polyphenol antioxidants. So it's very it's very very fascinating. So coffee is for all intents and purposes, from what we know, coffee is good for the liver. That's not to say that having 5 times the daily caffeine limit is advisable to anyone, right? We're talking about a modest consumption, but I think it's safe to say coffee is protective against bad liver health outcomes.
100%. I mean, we talk about how great coffee is, on the site. You have done a great job of talking about how great coffee is on your site as well. Um, and also, we're kind of getting into the pattern of tying that into coffee maybe not being such a bad guy when it comes to acid reflux and GERD as well. So, which
Yes,
often is like a comorbidity of people who also have fatty liver disease. So,
right. Yeah, it's
mhm.
tough. One thing I do appreciate is that I think this is you can tell me what you think about this. On reflection, like in my head, coffee is like a black coffee, a cold brew. But I also appreciate that's only one of very many types of forms of coffee that people consume, and that goes across the whole spectrum. So I think sometimes when you talk about coffee, in a public space like social media, people are thinking they're not thinking about that one or two black coffees a day. They're thinking of some other confection, which is all good, by the way. I mean, there's all these products are there for us to enjoy, but it is a little bit different if it's a small amount of coffee and a bunch of other stuff versus a cup of coffee, right? So I appreciate a little bit, people's thoughts when it comes to that. But in my head, it looks a certain way, right? So
I agree with you. When I think of
and I
coffee,
truly
I'm
love my
thinking
coffee
of the
too.
cup.
So yeah,
Yeah, I think of the cup.
yeah,
I'm not thinking of the um, frappuccino, so to speak, as counting as like a
right,
cup of coffee. With maybe like a higher fat milk, a lot of sugar,
sure,
some coffee with like a flavoring. To me that doesn't count as like a serving of coffee for like the polyphenols, the antioxidant boost that I'm looking for. You know.
right.
100%. And I think that is some like noteworthy to continue to get that messaging out to the public as well. You know, a hundred
Yeah, no,
percent. So really, what
it's
was
a
your
very good point.
inspiration? Yeah, yeah, definitely. So you worked on the essential diet for fatty liver,
Mhm.
which is, it's not only a cookbook, but it's a nutrition guide. And was it your initial post on Instagram that kind of like inspired you to look into liver health further?
So you know what, Lone? Like I said, I mean, I made that post. It did really, really well, but I didn't think anything of it. And then my publisher offered me this book on liver disease, and I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, cool. And in the end, for me, the book on this book, I think, is the one I'm most proud of because it feels like a big issue, not well understood. There's a lot of fun, juicy science out there to really bring it to life. And the thing is, I wrote the book, and then I wrote a bunch of let's say complimentary blog posts to it. And so I feel like I've covered literally every actionable point of intervention that has any sort of evidence when it comes to improving liver health. It's probably the one. It came out at a time when it's a weird time in the world, right? In the last year or so. So it came out at a bit of a weird time, but it's probably the book I'm the most proud of. And you're right. There is a lot of good research and science in this one for sure. Um, but yeah, no, it proved after the fact when I did some TikTok content on it that people are really really compelled. Like I said earlier, they're really really compelled by liver health. And they're very passionate about it, and you can tell they're getting information from certain places when it comes to the divisive messaging around certain things. We can talk about that. Fructose comes up a lot. People, my perception is on TikTok, people like to blame fructose. It's a very hot topic, and we can discuss that, I'm sure. But yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm interested in hearing more about the fructose actually, because that's something I
No.
regularly. So yeah, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So
Okay? So what I will say is, so I make sure I'm coming through. Okay. So I'll talk about like what I've seen in terms of fructose and fatty liver because I know this is a popular subject matter. I think for me the most important messaging is like not to get because fructose is obviously found in fruits and vegetables. Okay. Now which accounts for something like
Yeah.
15% of fructose intake in North America or the United States. So that's very small, right? So we have to. The only thing that concerns me, I have no problem if someone has a crusade against, sugar sweetened beverages, which is just a fancy word for pop, essentially. You know, people those products bring some people joy. Potentially, they contribute almost half of people's fructose intake. Now, what people pull from is that fructose intake and fatty liver prevalence have gone up in parallel. Okay, and there's very likely celebrity doctors or other celebrity health influencers who are really crapping on fructose, et cetera, et cetera. Now, fructose is metabolized different than other sugars. The liver is involved in metabolism, so people put all these pieces together, right? And they like to blame fructose. And I think the most important message for the average person is, look, like, yeah, I mean, having 3 or 4 pops per day is probably not a net benefit to your health. It may be uniquely problematic for your liver. The amount of evidence is not as good as it is for some other things like saturated fat. We can talk about that later. I think it's pretty comfortable to say, listen, like, if half of someone's fructose intake is coming from pop, there's an area to reconsider, right? What you don't need to reconsider is that you don't have fruit because of fructose. You don't have 100% fruit juice, which, for many people could be an economical, way to access nutrients that maybe are not always accessible depending on where they live geographically. It's very important not to fear those foods because of this messaging. That's my main thing. It's certainly as well, just because, a yogurt or an oatmeal has a little bit of sugar in it to make it more palatable to you. You don't need to go on a crusade against those foods as well. So that's where it gets a little bit dicey and interesting for me. But the amount of evidence, like actual high quality evidence beyond observational evidence linking fructose with fatty liver, is not that high, but it makes for a good story, certainly. And it could prove to be better evidence soon. But from what I saw, there's not as much, if you look at the literature, there's not as much attention paid to that as other things, based on what I've seen.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the story of, kind of being a nutrition professional is kind of
Hmm.
defending what is really available in science to kind of picking apart pieces of what people just kind of put out there for reaction, and different fad
Yeah.
diets. you know
Yeah, it's
it's
it's easy to pick on, like, because it's just a story, like I said, it's metabolized, and there's the pieces all fall together to tell a good story. But growing up, I
right.
always would tell people, like, the more like clear the line is with science, I feel like almost the less likely it is to be true. And that's not actually, that there's some things that for which that's not necessarily true for, but I always kind of felt that in the back of my mind. So just because the pieces fit nicely, it sounds good, it doesn't always it's not always the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and in fact, like I said, I mean, saturated fat is I don't know, to call it controversial. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But in the public sphere, it's certainly, people want to hear that saturated fat is not bad and they can have all that they like, because it's in the foods that they love. And certainly, the foods that contain saturated fat, red meat and dairy, it's all, can obviously be part of a balanced routine. But there's a great deal of scientific evidence regarding people who have fatty liver disease when they sub out saturated fat for other fats, that, liver fat accumulation, inflammation goes down. For that, there's much more actual experimental evidence beyond just correlational evidence. So that's a great area for intervention, bringing in, like, and the thing is, and this is the reality. I tell my clients, like, I've looked at all these issues. It really comes down always to the same core group of foods for the most part. What's good for type 2 diabetes, what's good for high cholesterol is very much what's good, and those are comorbidities as well. Often a fatty liver is probably what's good for fatty liver too. There's a massive connection between, a relatively small core group of foods. Even though people like to pick out, one superfood here or one superfood there, it doesn't always really amount to that. That's something I definitely have observed looking at all these different conditions.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. I think that, like, you know your cookbook really kind of touches on the Mediterranean diet, which is a very well researched, a very well known dietary pattern that also
Mhm.
services those other conditions. It services type 2 diabetes, services high blood pressure, high cholesterol.
Mhm.
It services longevity 100%. So I think that is key because it's, you know, anti-inflammatory, and it does really promote a diversified eating pattern, but it's also something that's attainable. I mean, it really does not, withhold you from any core food group.
Yes, no, I agree. And people, I think sometimes, and I'll say a few things about the Mediterranean diet because obviously came up a lot in the research. And this goes back to what you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, where the word fatty liver disease, or let's put parentheses on fatty. There's a lot of studies that show Mediterranean diet improves liver health parameters and outcomes independent of body weight change. Because I have clients with this condition. Everyone's the first thing is like, I gotta lose a bunch of weight, got fatty liver disease. Okay, and okay, sure, there's evidence in those areas, fine, but there's a lot of evidence that just incorporating some more key foods can, independent of any changes there, exercise and key foods, independent of body weight changes, can improve liver health, right? So you also need to be burdened by those types of external pressures that very often a quick exchange with the doctor, they have 5 minutes to talk to you. Okay, they're going to give you some path of least resistance guidance. Um, how I like to frame, the Mediterranean diet is essentially like what you said. It's diversity essentially in your protein intake. So most people have a bunch of chicken and beef. Cool. Can we have some fish? Can we have some lentils or chickpeas? And to demystify what I and you can tell me what you think about this. What I tell my clients is, listen, like the Mediterranean diet's basically asking you to look at some things as everyday foods that maybe you think of as occasional foods, particularly legumes and like which are lentils and chickpeas, and nuts and seeds. Right? It's more or less just saying, because look, fruits and vegetables, whether or not people enact it, they probably know those are everyday foods, right? So I put that aside. But legumes and nuts and seeds for me are the big frontier I fight on in quotes with most of my clients, because people don't really view them as foods to be consumed daily, but they really do help with a lot, especially if you're looking at conditions like cholesterol, blood sugar issues, fatty liver. They really do help. So it's a paradigm shift to look at certain things as daily foods, whereas something like a beef or a chicken or a protein, no, people have no issue seeing that as foods to be consumed daily, right?
Right.
So that's where I kind of intervene on that kind of line of thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you do have some really good recipes to reflect that thinking, in your cookbook, which is fantastic. Um, what, just out of curiosity, what are your
Mhm.
favorite recipes from your cookbook? Because
This is a
there's
good
so
question.
many.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, I
Honestly,
will
so
say,
like I love your
yeah.
acid reflux cookbook.
Mhm.
There the recipes in the acid reflux cookbook are phenomenal. I've made several of them. The recipes in this cookbook are like they're so scrumptious. I mean, every single one of them are just like mouth watering. Like you don't like I wouldn't look at this as like a cookbook that's going to help me like improve any condition because it's so
That's fine.
good, but it is,
Good.
yeah,
No, that's great. I mean, look, good. I mean, hopefully, hopefully people, who get the books get do feel the same. It is funny though, So I'll say two things to that. It's funny because for a lot of these books, I mean, there's a great deal of research information that goes into it. But if you look at the Amazon page, it's all about the recipes, really. Like, it's all about like, are the recipes suitable or not? The information is almost like irrelevant. No one really says the information is one way or the other. Maybe yes, but it's like the recipe's good or bad. Are they true to? And then fair enough. Like practical implementation is everything. My favorite recipe is probably the cover recipe of my pescatarian cookbook. Also because it's also my sister's favorite recipe, and my sister doesn't cook that much. So that's cool. The fact that she keeps telling me that's her favorite is funny. And also because I kind of converted to become a pescatarian after I wrote that book, or more so because I had to like be a pescatarian to write it, and I didn't feel right
okay.
pretending to be one. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna kind of be a pescatarian now. So that's a fun fact. Not many people know that. So there you go.
Oh, I did not.
I'm like a
Oh,
95% pescatarian. I mean I did have a burger today, but I'm like 95% pescatarian. So
that's probably what I would be too. We eat mostly plant-based,
yo,
because we've had the teenagers go through their
sure.
vegetarian I would say phases because they're kind of off of it now, but yeah, so we pretty much followed whatever they're eating for economic
That's
reasons.
fun.
But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
you know,
for practicality as well, I'm sure.
yeah, plus you have to model what's correct as well. And, being a dietitian, you kind of overthink that stuff when your kids come to you and they're like, I want to be a vegetarian. It's like, okay, great. Yes, we're going to do this right because I know what your
Right.
nutrients look like at your age and you're going to meet them. So,
Right. Well, it's
yeah.
true. That's a whole other, yeah, it's a whole other topic is, doing plant-based right. And like, that's always fun. I mean, I love, and that's the joy of this field, right? There's all these little, there's a lot there's, like I said, there's a core group of foods that are more important than the rest, but there's so much individual nuance and personalization involved. So it's a pleasure to explore all those things.
Oh, definitely. It's always a puzzle. Well, one thing that I really like too is that you just go ahead and throw out like that 7 day sample menu that,
Hmm.
people, anytime there's a cookbook that just has a 7 day sample menu,
It's true. People love
it's a
it's the structure, right? And we take it for granted. I mean, and I like we take for granted because I have mastery over nutrition. Sometimes I'll tell clients like, this is what you're working towards, but this is otherwise. My job is to condense the time, but this would be years to really achieve, full level of comfort understanding. So anything that makes it easier, like that lays out a roadmap of what to do and when, and minimizes the thinking. Of course, it's going to be appealing. So the editors
yeah.
know what they're doing. The publisher knows what they're doing. So credit
Well,
to them.
yeah, definitely. I mean, you gave away some dietitian tricks in there too. So, well,
Well,
they're public knowledge, but some tricks that I always like to bring up, like the portion control hand method, just
mhm.
easy stuff that like, I think people could really utilize in their everyday life, just how to use your hand as a measuring cup, you know.
100%. You know,
Yeah.
it's a fascinating thing, and I reflect on it as well because I'm here and I'm like, let me look at how symbiotics interact with, liver enzyme levels. But the reality is that's fascinating for me, but really, practically speaking, it's not really what like 99% of people are need or are compelled by it. It's almost, so sometimes you have to take a step back and realize, okay, this needs to be a little bit more, pragmatic and basic and stuff like that. I almost look into it more for myself and to really help people. Of course, there are people who are very much on the like they like novel information at all times and new insights. But it's funny. I think about stuff like that a lot. And sometimes the most basic, what appears to us to be the more basic things, are probably the most impactful. So it's very fascinating from that perspective as well.
Oh, definitely, for sure. You know, I really think this is just something that everybody needs to keep in the back of their mind because, you were talking about the different diagnostic criteria for,
Hmm.
finding out, do I have fatty liver disease or not? And it's not even something that I think like is maybe a regular conversation. Like you said, a lot of people have 5 minutes with their medical providers.
Hmm.
But I think like, we know that the prevalence is much higher than it's kind of being reported. And it's maybe something like on a blood panel where you're going to have like a liver enzyme elevation, but
Hmm.
really like, you know, biopsies,
100%.
ultrasounds. I mean, these are tests that, a lot of people are maybe, scared to, partake in and or, pay for. So I was reading an article that there is a group out of I think it's UT Southwest, and they've developed another lab to actually help with the identification of fatty liver
Oh,
disease.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding of the flow now, obviously medical systems in Canada and the United States work differently. I'm not intimately involved with the medical system. I just have clients
I
who are
keep
talking about
forgetting
nutrition.
you're in Canada where
Yeah.
you have like healthcare.
Right, and of course, and there's pros and cons, to that. Like for example, you can't just get whatever test you want whenever you want it. You know what I mean? Of course, that could be a con, and the pro is like you can get I don't know, the minimum whenever you want it, right? And that's like I'm not an expert on the differences between our healthcare systems, to be fair, but from what I understand is how it often comes about is you might get some blood work. Maybe the doctor notices that liver enzymes are elevated, and since you explore more closely from there, right, which can mean an ultrasound and potentially a biopsy, depending on all sorts of other factors, which I'm not fully aware of. But usually, my understanding is usually it starts with there's no symptoms per se, right? It usually just starts with like noticing elevated enzyme levels, which doesn't guarantee someone has fatty liver, but it's one of the first things, from my understanding, that comes up.
Okay. That is
Hmm.
something that would be noteworthy of exploration for sure. For sure. So, side question,
Hmm.
how how are the dietitian referrals then with the healthcare system in Canada? Just side question. So,
Yeah, that's also, I mean, that's a very interesting one. If I had to, it seems to me that like, there's a lot of let's say pre-existing relationships that facilitate that. That's my sense. I do get the occasional, myself personally, I'll get the occasional doctor referral. People will know of me who I don't know how they know me, maybe, for whatever reason, maybe online, elsewhere. So there are referrals. It's not a straight funnel though. And sometimes doctors will have like whether it's a friend or colleague or family member, they'll know a dietitian, they'll send everyone. But I'm not so engaged to even really comment on in that on a high level. My clients come to me probably through the internet, through social media, a few through their doctor, so I don't really know what goes on in the doctor's office. I don't necessarily know that doctors refer out to dietitians that often because in the hospital system in Canada, you can see a dietitian that's covered by healthcare by our public healthcare. But you have to have, it's not just for fun. Like you have to have a real reason. There's got to be criteria met. You'll need a referral, and you might have to wait a while to see them potentially. You cannot see them whenever you want. There's going to be large gaps between meetings. Whereas myself, people who have private insurance or who pay out of pocket, they can see me as often as they'd like. So it's a little bit. There's a few layers to it. Um, but I'm pretty, I'm in like the private, in a sense, I'm in the private healthcare field, I guess. I haven't stepped foot in a hospital in any sort of employment capacity in years, right? So
gotcha.
it's a different vibe.
Okay. Okay. So there could be a wait, but potentially there's access, but again, they have to meet criteria and whatnot. I see. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
someone couldn't see me. I mean, they could see me. I wouldn't it wouldn't be free. They couldn't see me and have it covered through our free insurance. They would have to have insurance through an employer, which many people do, by the way. To be fair, many
Okay.
people do have additional insurance through an employer. But and I know it's so that's a whole can of worms, and I know it's so different as well in the United States, right? It's fascinating stuff that if it's just in the medical in the medical systems, of course.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. It's a huge fight for dietitians here for sure, because there's, some of your major conditions that are actually covered,
Hmm.
diabetes, obviously.
Hmm.
But, for general nutrition, definitely some of the major insurance companies do cover X amount. But, you have to go and, actually apply to be, you know,
A lot of hoops to
under
jump
the,
through.
yeah,
Yeah,
lots of
just the
hoops.
way it should be, not sarcastically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
You know,
yeah, it's a situation for sure. Not all insurances actually, cover nutrition visits for the insured, which is, you know, it's it's definitely a deficit. You know, in a way, I feel like nutrition and exercise, science and physical therapy and all that. There's a lot that needs to be worked on for sure.
right. Yeah, I mean, in can you always, you hear the cliche. I mean, you see it in Canada, if you have an American, you'll see the ads, advertisements for pharmaceutical products and things like this, right? And that's, so it's fascinating. And I always think of the film Love and Other Drugs as well. I don't know if you've seen that with Jake Gyllenhaal and Anne
Yeah,
Hathaway. It's a great film if you haven't.
yeah.
So.
Well, it's been a long time, but do you have the advertisements during your programs or your shows for the pharmaceutical drugs?
So, I mean, if I'm at my parents, they watch cable TV. Myself, I'm usually just watching soccer or Netflix, so I don't watch cable
Okay.
TV, so I don't get those advertisements. But certainly, there's the advertisements. There's the half of it is just all the side effects. So, and don't get me wrong. I
Yeah.
mean, look, I enjoy looking into pharmaceutical statistics, and obviously, medications have an important role to play for a variety of conditions. And interestingly enough, there's no approved medication for NAFLD, right? So
Right.
that's a fun little fact. So the real intervention is diet and lifestyle, which is fancy way lifestyle is a fancy way to say exercise, and exercise, certainly large amount of evidence that exercise, whether aerobic or resistance training, any type of exercise helps with fatty liver disease. It reduces liver fat accumulation. A lot of evidence on that. Lots of
So we're
evidence.
talking like walking, like anybody who like just really hasn't done any movement, like they don't have to go big, like they don't have to go join a
Hmm.
CrossFit. They can literally just like, start, walking or even doing like chair exercises and just something like that is going to be helpful.
100%. Yeah, there's a lot of there's quotes because I like to pull salient quotes from articles, and there was one quote from I think the American Journal of Gastroenterology. It said like it was previously thought that it had to be high intensity exercise, but now we see that moderate intensity exercise is also useful. So yeah, I mean, look, anything is of course better than nothing. I think that's safe to say. I mean, that goes with eating a vegetable. That goes with exercise. So you do what you can. And there's room, and there's a little bit of room for supplementation as well. And we talk about it's funny because you know if you look at the evidence for supplements, one of the ones that's more popular is milk thistle. That's a very popular one in the online and elsewhere. But the ones with the more evidence are probably symbiotic, which is a fancy way to say a probiotic with some fiber in it, basically translation, and then omega threes. Those are the two supplements. And then there's another one, L-carnitine, which is not a huge amount of evidence, but that's another fascinating one. I mean, and I'm just gonna say what L-carnitine does because it's kind of fun. Like what L-carnitine does in the body is it carries if I have it right, actually it carries fat to be metabolized. So and there's studies that show that people with fatty liver have lower levels of L-carnitine. Now, obviously, fatty liver is a disease of liver, fat on your liver. So if the molecules that carry fat to and fro are not in the right amount, and this is a gross oversimplification, of course. If they're not in the right amount, that could be problematic. And there's a little bit of emerging evidence there as well. So it's fascinating stuff. So if anyone who's watching is interested, probiotics, omega 3, L-carnitine. There's something there to show that those things help, right? So no, there you go.
Definitely. And you've got some probiotic articles, you've got some prebiotic articles,
Hmm.
prebiotic and prebiotic fibers, really good stuff. I guess if you were going to tell the audience some, key points regarding, fatty liver prevention from a dietary perspective, what would those be?
Yeah, okay. Well, I would say, you have looking at certain foods as foods, like I'll go back to my initial point because, it's not a gimmick. It's just fundamental things. Looking at certain foods as foods to be eaten more often. That's rather than say eat less of this, I'd say eat more of this. So the legume family of foods, lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans, very unique. Large amount of fiber, large amount of protein in the same place. Very filling, very neutral effect essentially on blood sugar levels, lowers cholesterol. Wonderful foods, not really utilized a lot. If you don't like to cook with them, go roast them, have them as a snack. Easy enough, right?
Mhm.
Nuts and seeds, again, people, nuts and seeds are on people's radar. Maybe they think they have, I get a lot that they have too many calories. I shouldn't eat them. Nuts and seeds should be viewed for me, nuts particularly as everyday foods, right? So start looking at nuts and legumes as everyday foods. That's what I would say. If you like seafood, whether it's, and by the way, it doesn't have to be some fancy organic salmon, canned sardines, for example, which I actually quite like, very high in omega 3,
Mhm.
high in vitamin D, right? Doesn't have to be anything fancy. If you like seafood and fish, try and have that more often than more conventional protein sources. You know what I mean? Start with that. I mean, that's the most, otherwise, yes, look, eating more vegetables and fruits, like great deal of evidence that that's useful. Having whole, again, this is more cliche. If you can switch from white bread or white rice or instant oatmeal to steel cut oatmeal and whole grain bread and brown rice, by all means do that. You know what I mean? But if that's not a frontier you're willing to fight on, then just start eating some more nuts and seeds and more legumes. There's a great deal of evidence that helps. right? So
And honestly, it's economical. I mean,
very,
really, we're
yes.
talking about foods that are, less expensive,
Hmm.
very versatile. I mean, you can do a lot with those. You can add them into dishes. You can do standalones. You can do soups, stews. You can do, lentil burgers. You can do a lot of
Hmm.
different things with, legumes. And you can add nuts to pretty much everything, nuts and seeds to pretty much everything as well.
100%. Even something like even olive oil has those monounsaturated fats, part of the Mediterranean diet, also good for the liver. Get a can of lentils, get some sardines, and if you don't like them under the can, which I actually don't either, I pan fry them. Put some lentils and sardines in the frying pan, put some olive oil on it, put your favorite seasoning on it, cook it till it's nice and crispy. You're probably gonna like it. It's, unless you have a very, picky palate, or I like to joke with my friend who's very picky, he's a pediatric palate. You know, unless you're probably gonna like it. You know what I mean? So if you think you don't like sardines, try pan frying them or throwing them in the air fryer. I think it might change your view, and that opens up a lot of doors, right? It opens up a great amount of doors, and like sardines are very economical. Like food prices are high in Canada. Salmon is very expensive, so it's not necessarily the most actionable advice to tell everyone to eat more salmon, which I appreciate. So sardines are cool. Give them a go. Or get canned salmon. Nothing wrong with that as well. You can pan fry. Like if you don't like it raw out of the can, fry it on a pan. That's gonna taste probably gonna taste better.
Yes, yeah. I'm so glad you brought up sardines. I had sardines for the first time probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Um,
Yep. I had like 4 cans
and
last night with some tofu for dinner. So there you go.
yeah, well, yeah, like Alex and I were watching some MMA. We usually do like a
Oh,
charcuterie,
nice.
just like, like it's usually like our date night, and we're like,
Nice.
oh, let's try some sardines. And so we had them on crackers, and they came in like a olive oil, like I think they
Nice.
had like a little bit of flavoring to them. Honestly, I loved them. I thought they were great.
Try pan
You
frying them.
know,
They're even better.
yeah, no,
Get
I
the
will
skin a little
definitely try
crispy.
that.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Get the
I
skin a little
like,
crispy and it's great.
tuna and stuff like that. So, I mean, I thought that, the sardines were delicious.
Sardines are so underrated because they're actually one of the highest. Like, fish, when you break fish down for people, fish is like the only food that has vitamin D, essentially. It's the only food that has vitamin D. And really, really, essentially, for most part, the only food that has certain types of omega-3s. You know what I mean? So really, it's very unique food, right? And sardines are at the top of the list in terms of low mercury and high in the components we want. So, people misunderstand sardines. They think of them, as some sort of inferior fish, etc. But they have great characteristics. They have what one is looking for in fish. And hey, you eat the bones, and the spine is very soft, by the way. There's a lot of calcium
Yeah.
in that, so you have it's wonderful, and it's not
Hmm.
like bony at all. I don't know if you notice that the bone. I mean, I fry them. That might soften the bones a little bit, but they're very easy to eat. So
Yeah, no, it wasn't bony
I'm
at
a relatively
all.
picky eater. I'm a relatively picky eater. Like I'm gonna be honest. So I'm not
Yeah, I
that
thought it
bad,
was
but
delicious.
yeah.
I almost wonder, like, I feel like I'm going back to my childhood where, like, maybe there was a cartoon or something where
Mhm.
they featured, like, sardines on pizza, and, like, maybe it was a Ninja Turtle or something, and, like, somebody thought the pizza was gross and one of them liked it
Right.
or something. And I don't know if that, like, stuck in my memory or something, but it took me, like, 4 decades to try sardines.
Oh,
And
I
I'm
wouldn't
like,
have
why
touched
didn't I
sardines
try
or
it?
lentils as a teen. I wouldn't have touched sardines, lentils, tofu. Three things I love right now. Forget that. 15-year
Yeah.
old me, there's no chance. I'm gonna have Swedish gummy bears for lunch from the vending
Uh,
machine. You know what I mean? So that was
Yeah,
very
yeah,
different.
no, I talk about it all the time. Like I was a year-round swimmer, and I had like two-a-days in high school. So
Oh,
I was like
that's
I
nice.
was doing like Hot Now, which was like a cheap McDonald's, or like McDonald's pretty much like every day to get
Mm.
calories. It was if I would have told my 15-year-old self that, I would have like been obsessed with nutrition, and or like, ate 5 servings of fruits and or vegetables a day. I would have laughed for sure. For sure.
100%. No, no. At least you had the swimming. I mean, I got into nutrition. I got into soccer. Like, I'm now a massive soccer fan, which I mentioned at the beginning. I got into soccer around age 16, 17 to play, and I fell in love with it. And nutrition facilitated from there. It was facilitated. My nutrition was facilitated from there. So I didn't grow up being obsessed with nutrition, I could care. I was indifferent, right? I was on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, but it makes it all the more compelling. You know, it's very cliche. Very often, you know, it's the cliche, oh, you have the trainer. Oh, yeah, you know, I wasn't fit when I was younger, and then I found the fitness, and now it's like I want to spread the, you know, very cliche. Like my story, it sounds like yours, perhaps a little bit similar as well. So yeah, no, but it makes us all the better because you can resonate as well with the people that you're speaking to, you know, in terms of where they're at. So I think that adds a layer to it too.
Oh, definitely, for sure. Well, I'm a Manchester United fan, so just throwing that out there.
That's cool. I'm a massive soccer fan. I'm very knowledgeable about soccer. I've been to, I don't live or die for one team, but I saw, I don't know how knowledgeable you are when mentioning that, but I saw an article on just today that PSG is considering Marcus Rashford. So I don't know what you think about that. So that's
Oh
very
yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Well, been a fan since
Interesting times at Man U right now.
1995.
Like, very interesting times. So no, I respect
Always.
that. That's awesome.
Yeah, always.
Soccer's a beautiful
Actually, I
thing.
have a,
It's beautiful.
oh yeah, I want to get to a game for sure. Well, this has been super fun. I'd love to see if anybody has any questions for Andy while we have him. Hopefully he'll come back and,
I'd
you
be
know,
happy to. It's a lovely. I know all sorts of stuff about all sorts of things. So happy to talk about whatever.
hey, we do. Let's see if Deanna wants to come up.
My sister's name is Diana, so that's fun.
Oh,
Hi,
hey,
that's
Deanna.
cool.
Hi. I am not camera ready, but I'm working. But I do have questions. I always have questions. She's like, I can count on her. She cheers when I come in.
That's
Um,
fun.
so, first of all, one of my questions is I found it fascinating that coffee is one of the places that the most antioxidants come from in the American diet. That is,
Hmm.
in my opinion, insane. I know that's not my biggest contributor, but guess what? I do drink my cup and a half of coffee every day. But side note, and I want your opinion on this, is I have done some research and definitely have utilized coffee enemas, which work very differently because they back into the liver, but they're the little bit of studies, and I'm sure it's not like published medical studies. I do a lot of alternative stuff. So,
Hmm.
but I also think that our allopathic medical field doesn't always explore the alternative things enough. But there is some boost to the enzyme that produces or helps create glutathione. So, do you have any experience with that? I mean, does that sound like a real thing? I mean, there's a whole clinic over here that treats cancer patients with this
You know
and
what?
juicing.
Okay, so I'm going to answer that in two parts. The first part is to your like surprise. I think that it's a reflection of probably coffee just as like has so many antioxidants, but also people don't really eat that many foods that have antioxidants in them. So it's like both. So it's funny. I just 5 minutes ago I said I know a lot of things about I know a lot of stuff about different things. I know nothing about that subject matter. However, what I will do is because it's very fascinating. This sounds like this would be very good and a funny thing for me to look into. Obviously, look at the science, but also reflect it. I'll write a blog post on that. Okay, and then you know what? You can read my opinion on it because right now I know I'm not even going to pretend to answer that question because I have no idea. I have
Okay,
to
and
admit.
I'll send Allison
Please do. Please do. I
the
will
name of
genuinely
the,
write a blog on this. Yeah.
yeah, and I'll send her the name of the clinic. I think it's based in California, but they do extensive work
Hmm.
with cancer patients,
Hmm.
and this is part of their protocol. Now, I wrote a juice cleanse because I'm not, I just want to do stuff that will help to um, give my liver a rest. So my cleanse is specifically written with the liver in mind. And I'll send you that too. It's not a book,
Sure.
but I'll send it to you. I'll just add you to a Facebook group or something. But it's
Sure.
not written with that, it's not a book, but it's written with that in mind, where it goes through phases where you're allowed to rest your liver with some juicing, but it's not meant to stay on long term, just something to kind of give you a reset, right? And a little boost. Because I know it's kind of a theory that you can detoxify your liver, but really it's the actual detoxifier. So,
Right.
but just giving it the support it needs, right, to do its job and let it rest because our diets are so terrible. So anyway,
No.
I do
Inflammation is a
coffee enemas
massive
and
part.
I love them. And that's why I want to know if they're really good for me because I do really love them. And I know that sounds weird.
We're gonna we'll see. I mean, you know what? If there's a story to tell, like I'll tell the story. You know,
Oh,
I'll
okay. And
see.
if you need to test somebody, I'll definitely be a test subject. It is because I feel good when I do them. Okay. So that's one.
Yeah, that's
And
yeah,
that's one question. Okay. My
yeah.
next question. I have two friends in the same family, and they both passed away. And their diagnosis was fatty liver. And they were both heavy. One of them probably drank a little bit more. One of them did not. The sister was a little older. I'm not going to say she never drank because we live in New Orleans, so it just does not really happen. But she wasn't a heavy drinker, right? He, on the other hand, would go through bouts where he drank a little bit more. But they both had the same thing, which I kept thinking had to be some kind of genetic something component in there. But they were both heavy, and I'm wondering, and sometimes I question this: is the weight a symptom more than the problem? Like, in other words, what's not functioning that they were over this weight? They were morbidly obese, I would say. What's not working properly in their bodies? Because you know what I mean? And then both of them had this liver failure thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I'm very sorry to, I'm very sorry to hear that. That's,
Thank you.
that's very, very sad. I've lost friends myself, so that
It's been a
sucks.
little while, but one of them died on my birthday. That's really awesome. Anyway,
Yeah, and if they're good friends, you're gonna remember them and bring them up now, and so that's it's a nice gesture, but that's a really tough question to answer because there's so much that dictates how someone's body functions and their health, right? It's such a hard question because I have no idea. I mean, they could have had, fatty liver can coexist with all sorts of other conditions as well. You know what I mean? It can coexist with type 2 diabetes, and coexist with high cholesterol and high blood pressure, all sorts of other stuff. So I mean, if things were out of alignment, perhaps the physical activity was very low over an extended period, the diet quality was very low over an extended period. You throw it, I don't know, genetics obviously play a role as well. It could be a perfect storm, and lots of things can go wrong.
yeah.
So it would be really hard for me to comment. It's possible that if they were in good health, the fatty liver was one thing going on. You mentioned alcohol; it could have been alcoholic fatty liver disease, which could have, perhaps there was cirrhosis of the liver. There's all sorts of possible causes, right? So really, really hard to comment on that one for sure. Beyond
Yeah, well,
saying that, yeah, it's like
they were diagnosed non-alcoholic because I don't think that was a high
sure,
contributing factor. But I'm not saying they never had a drink. You know what I'm saying? But
okay,
I
no, I
know
understand. Yeah,
one
yeah.
of
So
them,
it wasn't, yeah,
one of them, like her younger brother, he, was specifically told because of this history, do not drink at all and don't
right,
take, pain medications like over the counter, like Tylenol,
right.
whatever. I know Tylenol's specifically bad, but they just told them just none. If you need something, you have to go through us. But I mean, he just, I think he tried really hard for a few years and it was just a lot. It was a lot. But you shouldn't, I knew people heavier than him. I know people currently heavier than him, older than him, drink more than him. And so that's why I was saying, like, was the weight a byproduct of whatever was wrong?
I mean, it could be. It's really, really hard to say because there's all sorts of, it depends. Like, if someone, like, if you just take someone, like, so obviously I don't know anything about your friends, but if they
Right.
were whatever weight they were and they had like an impeccable diet, let's just say, like, a flawless across the board, what would that change? Obviously, we can't go back in time. We can't see, if this was genetic, if it, what the case would be, what the case may be. Um, it's possible that if diet, like, let's just say less than optimal dietary choices over a very long period contributed to the weight gain, and there's other factors. It obviously, it could have played a role there. And yes, I mean, to have fat in your liver, it's statistically probably more likely you have more body fat in total, right? And
Mm.
again, the whole issue is that it's the body fat in the liver interferes with how the liver functions, or the fat in the
Oh,
liver interferes with how the liver functions, and it gets worse over time.
yes.
So obviously, I still can't probably answer that question super, super well. but
Yeah.
it's possible, it's possible.
It's just odd. It just was odd that both of them went that route within a few years. It just was such an odd situation. And I'm
Could be
not,
genetic factors
like
as well.
he went through it because of what happened with his sister. He went through a whole thing with diet, and he dropped a
Hmm.
lot of weight with his diet and doing his diet right. But in the end, it just still wound up exactly the same. And they have another sister, and his parents are not, So I don't, it's just
There's so
strange.
many factors, where there's so many like factors that go into it that determine
Yeah,
someone's health
yeah,
outcomes, right? There's so much going on, and there's could be things going on that you personally had no idea about, or no one else knew besides them, right? It's tough.
yeah,
It's tough.
true, absolutely true. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll send Allison some
Sure.
information on that
I'll
other
check it
stuff
out.
because yeah, I definitely want to read a blog about it.
I will check it out. As long as there's something, at least something substantive for me to write about, I will. I promise you, I will write it.
Okay.
I don't need
Awesome.
an excuse to write about some fun stuff.
Yeah, it's called the Gerson Clinic, but I'll send her the Gerson Institute
Yeah,
or Clinic.
you have me interested. I'm gonna look forward to seeing what's up.
Okay.
Yeah, that is interesting. I haven't heard of the coffee enemas before, but when I moved down south, I did work at a couple healthcare establishments that did give the Coca-Cola enemas. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So very
Okay,
non. I'm a
Yeah,
very non
that's a high
soft.
fruit. That would be a high fructose enema then. So
Right. I'm a very
yeah,
I mean,
that's fine.
non.
Coca-Cola, like, it really does, pull that fluid because it's high
Because
fructose, and it also really
the
does kind of
osmolality or something. What's the
the
scientific term for that?
osmolality, and
Yeah,
you put Coca-Cola on anything and it will eat away everything. So
right.
I
Is
guess
that
that was
good?
another theory why it was a good choice for the enema, but it was
So
frequently used at one of the healthcare systems down here.
that's interesting. So for the coffee enema, even though it is an enema because of how it's administered, it's not like a high enema. It's not set to. It's not meant to really flush your whole system out. The idea is for it to just go backwards to hit the liver and activate that enzyme to start producing what it needs to produce to increase your glutathione, because that is the detoxifier that is what it does everything, right? All your tissues, the organs, everything. It's one of I know it's not the only one, but it's the main detoxifier because it goes into everything, not just specific things.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that, but I know it's like a strong antioxidant, and so it
Right.
serves a bunch of roles in the body. Yeah, look, I'm looking at you, talking to you, but half of my brain is already thinking about this. So
He has
you know,
checked out. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
no,
great.
like
I am
I'm
so
thinking
glad I
it too.
gave
I'm
you a
like,
challenge.
physiologically,
I hope there's some fun stuff about this, because this is very potentially
interesting.
interesting, and has a certainly some room for humor as well. So
Yeah.
it's
So and
my
it's
favorite combination.
and if you go to that website that I talked about, because I feel like they are one of the most knowledgeable on this, and then you
Hmm.
can do some research beyond that, obviously, but they'll give you a better explanation than I just did. And they'll tell you what kind of coffee too, because it's like lightly roasted,
Right, that's
organic. It
funny.
can't be, like to go to the store and buy, you know,
Yeah.
Has to be that good
buy
stuff, yeah.
and it's lightly roasted, which means it's got a little bit of a higher caffeine count in it too. But that's a key element. So anyway, so when you
Yeah.
started talking caffeine, I just was like, bing, bing, bing. Anyway,
No,
half
thank you
my
for that.
brain disappeared.
I'm truly genuinely interested now. So I look
Okay,
forward to looking into this.
all
I
right. I
can't
just followed
wait.
you on Instagram too, so we'll see.
Oh, great,
Okay.
awesome! You can see all sorts of fun on there too, so you can see what I've been up to. And if I post the blog, it'll definitely. I'm gonna make a post. I'll make a infographic for it too, so not to worry.
Oh,
Yeah, the
fun.
infographics are great. So I highly suggest that everybody, like, first of all, check out andytherd.com, and then also check out Andy the RD on Instagram, which is
Please
my
do.
personal favorite. I love it. But andytherd.com has Andy's blogs, links to his wonderful books, and a whole bunch of really cool content on there about various health topics. I mean, not only liver health and acid reflux and GERD. We're talking about men's health and a lot on men's health, which is really
Yeah.
cool stuff. And
The article I posted today was about sperm health. Literally, it's not. It sounds like
yeah,
it sounds like a joke, but it's a genuine area. Yeah, I mean a swimming thing.
yeah,
I mean, you probably
yeah.
appreciate that one, Allison. I actually I didn't realize you were a swimmer. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Someone actually got upset at me that I was that I wasn't trying to insult Ryan Lochte. I was comparing to Michael Phelps. Someone got actually upset. They literally wrote Ryan Lochte doesn't deserve this.
I saw
It's like
that.
that's not the point, but I respect it. You know what? He's also a very accomplished swimmer, to be fair, so it's all good.
Yeah, no, I saw that. That was really funny. We were
Yeah.
talking actually in the green room before this how much I enjoy Andy's Zac Efron memes on
He's
his
the perfect
or
ex-boyfriend.
infographics.
Yeah.
They're just so good. They're just so good.
I'll have to
Yeah.
redo I'll repost the Kale ex-boyfriend one soon because I can't come up with them like I used to. I think I was really on fire. I had a period where I was just like I was really on fire. It's not easy to come up with that stuff, but
Well,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
older now. You do have you do have Zac Efron in his, High School
True.
Musical era. So,
Yeah.
might be time to evolve him.
You know what? You might be onto something. You might. I love the injection of creativity this evening.
Yes.
I
Yes.
feed off of that, so it's been wonderful.
I'm here to help. So this has been awesome. It's been so much
Thank you
fun.
for having me. It has been. This is
Yeah.
great. I love talking.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Well, we will do this again for sure sometime. And
Look forward
I'm
to it.
really super looking forward to the the post on the coffee enemas
Send me
or
those
the
links. I have all the fuel I
yes.
need now to look it up, and I'm literally this will be on my radar for the next 10 days to have this out. So here we go. Let's see what's
Yes.
up.
Super psyched. Awesome. Well, and
All
thank you
right.
to
Thanks so
everybody in the
much.
audience for joining us tonight. And please visit us on foodguides.com and our socials at Food Guides Help. So have a great night.
Take care, Allison. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.